and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I am your host, Rebecca Felgate, and today we are getting pretty unholy and a little morbid as we talk the top 10 scary churches where prayers won't help you. They won't. You're not going to be helped. Let me know which of these you would least like to spend the night in the comments section down below, and don't forget to stick around to the end where I'll be replying to comments. Leave a thumbs up and check out the links to our social medias in the description box. Alright, coming in at number 10 we have St Mary the Virgin Church in CLOPHILL in the United Kingdom. She may lay in ruins, but the chances are that this dilapidated building will ruin you. Sitting quiet in the sleepy old English village of CLOPHILL, there is said to be a force of evil here. Blimey. Laying abandoned and in ruins is the Church of St Mary the Virgin, built in 1350. Interestingly, the church's altar faces south, towards hell, rather than the traditional east, which is where churches usually face to point to heaven. Basically, a whole bunch of Christians believe that the south-facing altar was constructed on purpose, and that the church was secretly a satanic meeting spot. The church has a very long history of reported hauntings, and people believe that the satanic rituals still take place here. The graveyard was desecrated in the 1970s, so now all of the gravestones sit facing the perimeter wall, which kind of makes it even creepier. Coming into number 9 we have St Paul's in New York. St Paul's Chapel is often named the Little Chapel That Stood, and when you see pictures of it you'll totally understand why. Built in 1766, the chapel now sits among skyscrapers at the base of the World Trade Center. It's the final resting place of Alexander Hamilton, the place that George Washington prayed on his inauguration day. It survived the Great Fire of New York and the 9/11 attacks, becoming a safe haven and spot of refuge for those who work to save people from the wreckage and put out the fires. All in all, it actually kinda sounds like a good place, so why is it so scary? I'll cut to the chase. There's a headless ghost here. A ghost without a head. Double the spooks. Actor George Frederick Cook was said to have donated his skull to the theatre to be used as the iconic piece in Hamlet. Good on him. He was buried sans head at the St. Paul Cemetery and is now said to wander the grounds looking for his, head. St. Paul isn't the worst of them for sure. I actually kind of think it's a bit quirky and I like the sound of a headless ghost. Coming into number 8 we have the Chernobyl Church. Has anyone watched Chernobyl on Netflix? Yeah, I haven't, but I keep meaning to. I hear it's really good. Let me know if you have in the comment section. Anyway, on the 28th of April 1986, a nuclear reactor exploded at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near PRIPYAT. Since that day there has been a 10-kilometer exclusion zone that won't be safe to enter for a very long time. Nuclear cleanup is still too dangerous and is set for the year 2065, which is 80 years on from the disaster. Right now there are a whole load of abandoned places sitting there, poisoned and spooky. Some people have even broken into the exclusion zone to see them, although very much at their own risk. One adventurer came across this old, sad and abandoned church in Krasny village in the exclusion zone. Yikes! Abandoned and radioactive. Do you want to have a look inside? Of course you do! Honestly, so spooky. Spookier still, coming into number 7 we have Egg Hill Church in Pennsylvania. Egg Hill kinda sounds like a cute, sweet place, doesn't it? But actually, it really isn't. The now abandoned Egg Hill Church is rumoured to be one of the more haunted buildings in the world, filled with unholy spirits. According to legend, a pastor arrived on the job in 1927, and shortly after he delivered his sermon, he decided to kill his entire flock as they took Holy Communion. Then, he killed himself by hanging himself. I can't confirm this with research, it's likely just an urban legend, but nonetheless, a lot of people think that the building is extremely haunted and very hateful. Coming into number 6 we have St Michan's Church in Dublin. Ireland. A country of so much rich history. Rich history can also be translated to a lot of dead people over the years too. It's kind of the case with this church. It was built in 1095 on the site of an old Norse chapel. It has a history of dead people extending back 1,000 years, which is bound to give a place a certain vibe. The church was rebuilt in 1686 and large pipe organ was installed. Apparently Handel is said to have first played his Messiah. Despite the change in building structure, the crypt remains the same. Now the crypt is made of limestone, which is perfect for preserving mummies. Amongst the bodies in the crypt are an 800-year-old crusader, a 400-year-old nun, two brothers who took part in a rebellion against the British, a thief identified by their missing hands. Fact for you, up until July 2017, visitors were actually allowed to touch the mummies. Oddly, while the crypt is really good for preserving human remains, it seems that the wooden coffins that they're buried in just keep bursting open and exposing bodies. Ugh. Sadly, in February 2019, the crypt was broken into and bodies were assaulted. The head of the crusader was stolen and the nun's body was chopped and decapitated. Another body was turned over in its grave. So who would disrespect the dead like this? We don't know, but luckily the crusader's head was eventually found and returned to the body. But I'm thinking, there are some angry mummies in that crypt. Coming into number 5, we have the Borgund Stave Church in Norway. I would love to go to Norway, but to me, this is just looking creepy from the off. Creepy, but I have to say a little bit cool. It kind of looks less like a church and more so like a witch's mansion, or maybe the Weasley's burrow. I guess that is kind of a witch's and wizard's home, even if they're good ones, but still, it's creepy just to look at. The church is slap bang in the middle of a medieval cemetery, and it is made from wood, but has somehow stood for 1,000 years, which to me is even more weird. There are strange engravings of animals and mystical creatures inside, and ancient runes to boot. Here be witches? Dragons? The imagination runs wild. Do you like unexplained wailing sounds? If so, you will love this at number 4. We have the Church of St. Andrew on Staten Island. This church dates back to the early 1700s and is located in Richmond, Staten Island. The church was used as a hospital during the American Revolution, and it seems to have left a deep scar on the building. These days it is said that the spirits of the dead soldiers haunt the halls, wailing, walking, knocking, creeping, just generally being creepy little ghosts. Candles flicker without wind, and some claim to have seen them float. There's a chill in the air here, even on a hot, heavy summer's day. Coming into number 3, we have ORADOUR sur GLANE Church in France. This is one of the saddest and scariest church stories of all time. War was an abysmal period of time for Europe, and between the two feuds, decades were lost to bloodshed. While the majority of the countries eventually recovered, deep scars were left in the land. A number of places that existed before simply didn't survive, including ORADOUR sur GLANE. On the 10th of June 1944, German SS soldiers destroyed the French village, killing 642 of its inhabitants, with just 20 people managing to escape. The black shirts rounded up the men and shot them at point blank range in a barn, but the church was a true horror. Women and children were rounded up into the village church, locked inside, and then burned alive as German soldiers set fire to the holy building. Hundreds of innocent people lost their lives in these walls. Honestly, I feel really bad for the people that had to go and find them there. French president of the time, Charles de Gaulle, ordered that the town remained untouched as a memorial to those who lost their lives in the savage attack. People can still visit the area and see the village left ransacked as it was that night. They can also see what remains of the church, if they dare. Coming into number 2, we have the SEDLEC ossuary in Czech Republic. It isn't the outside of this church that is the issue. Have a little look. See, no scarier than any other church, right? Well, my friends, step inside. This church is filled with the remains of 40 to 70,000 people, which, yikes. Not even that, like out of sight, out of mind. If they were buried somewhere or like in the walls, that would be fine. But this chapel is decorated with the bones and skulls of the dead. There are pillars made out of bones, a chandelier of bones, a coat of arms made from actual arms, and then I'm sorry, but why is there a skull on this cherub's knee? I'm honestly kind of petrified. Why are their skulls holding bones in their mouths? This is macabre and I don't like it. It seems that the church dates back to 1278, but in the early 16th century, bones were exhumed by a blind monk. A lot of the bones are thought to belong to plague victims. Ugh. So, how do you top a church made of bones? Ho ho ho. Get ready for number 1. We've got the Satanic Temple, a place that I don't want to be. Prayers to God will not help you in the Satanic Church, but you could pray to Lucifer, not that I would advise it. At the Satanic Church, unholy pastor Victor Damien Rosso, who by the way claims that he is the son of the devil, suggests that people make a pact with Lucifer himself, his dad. Why? Well, so they can become rich and then the devil will own their soul. Classic. The Church of Lucifer is located in Colombia and actually does look pretty churchy. It seems that Rosso was raised Catholic but denounced God and turned to the devil. Do you want to look inside? I feel like you do. Check out this clip from a Vice documentary.
Una construcción grande con cruces invertidas. El templo visto desde afuera se ve solitario, cerrado y totalmente privado. Y para ser una iglesia no da mucho la bienvenida.
¿Víctor o Héctor?
I have to say, like, all joking aside, it does have some pretty sweet decor. Leather chairs, black curtains, big black and red satanic pentacles, backlit upside down crosses, and an altar to the Dark Lord himself. Can we just talk about how Lucifer's throwing the classic rock hand here, like Satan loves heavy metal? What a cliche! Locals have complained about the amount of animals ritually sacrificed by the group. Wanna have a look at what a satanic ritual at the church looks like? Here you go.
Hay unos seguidores de él tiene una túnica roja, los otros una túnica negra y están a punto a mí de vestirme e investirme en la religión luciferina. Entonces ya veremos qué pasa después de esta noche.
I do enjoy a good candle, but honestly, this is all a bit intense for me, and culty. I really don't enjoy a cult, I just need to be free.
At number 10, we have the Temple of Amida in Japan. Let's kick off this list by flying over to Japan. The Japanese have some of the best ghost stories in history. I still have scenes from The Ring and The Grudge burned into my brain. Those were perfect movies for me to watch as a 13-year-old boy. I remember the girl in the closet who looks like she just got pushed through a trash compactor and then left out in the sun for 8 years. Yeah, when you're 13 and you see that out of nowhere, you don't forget it overnight. Well, this is a classic Japanese ghost story from the Temple of Amida that was built 700 years ago. Legend goes that a blind man was brought to play music for a dead emperor in the graveyard. He was led by a priest, but the blind dude didn't know he was playing music for a bunch of ghosts. The priest would cover his body in protective symbols so the spirits couldn't see him. But one time he brought the blind dude in, but he forgot to cover his ears, so the spirits cut his ears off. Then he died in the graveyard. It's said that you can still hear the blind guy's music playing in the graveyard. Ooh. At number 9, we have the Church of St. Nicholas in Plucky, England. We're gonna jump on a plane and fly over to jolly old England for the most haunted town in the UK. Plucky, England is a place where the hauntings are hot and the people still live there. Everyone knows you can live wherever you want, right? It's not the 1800s anymore, where if you try to move to a new town, half your family will die and it'll take you a year and a half. Plucky is so haunted that when Halloween rolls around, they need to bring in more cops because so many drunk dummies come to the town to dress slutty and see if they can run into a phantom. And in this town is the Church of St. Nicholas, where the spirit of Lady Deering walks around looking for her dead kid. It's said that she was buried in 7 lead coffins, but it didn't stop her from breaking out and haunting the hell out of this church. I don't even think lead does anything to ghosts. I think it's supposed to be silver. They were probably like 7 silver coffins? Jesus Christ, that's expensive. Let's use lead and hope for the best. At number 8, we have the Chapel of Bones. Now it's time to head over to Portugal for one of the creepiest arts and crafts projects I've ever seen. Back in Portugal, somewhere in the 16th century, the cemeteries were getting too full. People were dying too quick. So when this happens, they need to dig up all the old, already rotted bodies, take out the dry bones, and then plop the fresh bodies into the hole. Now usually when you got something like this happening, they take all the bones, then make something like the Paris catacombs. But that's not what the monks of the Church of St. Francis wanted to do. They were like, hey, let's take all these dope bones and make a bone house so everyone can bone in it. No, they did build a chapel made of bones, but that's not why they built it. They built this clavicle castle to remind people they were going to die, so they should be good people before they die. They were literally like, you see this? You see this spooky skeleton house? Be a better person! It's made with concrete and using around 5,000 bones. I wonder if that's legal to do today. Like if I built a little doghouse made out of bones on my front yard for my dog and to scare kids off my lawn. Could I do that? At number 7, we have St. Andrew's Church in Selkirk, Manitoba. Get your winter coat, we're heading over to Selkirk, Manitoba to check out the Church of St. Andrew's. We're going all over the world with this one. By the end of this video, you'll have no excuse not to check out a scary church. Unless you're like me and you're just not going to do that because that's a terrible way to spend your day. Well, the Church of St. Andrews is nicknamed St. Andrew's on the red, because if you're lucky, you'll see a set of glowing red eyes in the church. Great, I put on all my nice clothes for church and I just pissed myself. People have also said that they've seen a ghost dude and a ghost lady walking around the graveyard. And my favorite haunting from this church is people have said they've seen a ghost car. What? I didn't know ghosts could have cars. This might be the only ghost with a car. If this is true, this guy for sure bangs. If you're the only dude in the afterlife with a ball and ride, you're getting laid. Dude, this ghost is probably just riding past the cemetery to pick up chicks. This dude could be driving the only Phantom Rolls-Royce Phantom. At number 6, we have the St. Mark's Episcopal Church in the UK. Back to England, guys. It's apparently the bell tower of this haunted church that is the hotspot for supernatural activity. Legend says that the stonemason who was building the tower fell to his death before the tower was finished, and then started haunting the workers who came to finish the tower. They pleased the spirit by building him his own room in the tower, which is so funny to me. They were like, we know you're upset that you're dead, but we all came together and got you something nice. Here's your room. There's a little bench in it, there's a memory foam mattress, and we know you're a stonemason, so we filled the bookcase full of the best books about stonemasonry. Do you like it? At number 5, we have St. George's Church in the Czech Republic. This church is old as hell. It was built in 1352. I'll bet money that this building is not up to code. Well, back in the day when this church was shiny and new, it didn't take long before the people thought it was cursed because fires kept breaking out in the darn thing. People kept going though. In the Czech Republic, they're not afraid of curses. But in 1968, when the roof collapsed on some people during a funeral, everyone decided to stop going to church. Kinda. They held mass outside. These guys really love God. Because there was now a massive hole in the roof, the townfolk needed to find a way to fix it. And they did this by playing up the whole curse story of the church. They put in some sculptures of shrouded figures in the church and then turned it into a haunted tourist attraction and raised enough money to fix the church. Oh, this one's kinda sweet. At number 4, we have Basilica of Our Lady of Good Health. We're in India, baby, in the town of Velankani, where the site of this church was picked because they saw spirits beforehand. They wanted the church to be haunted even before it was built. Interesting choice. There's several ghosts who have been walking around this place, primarily one of a woman and her young child, who people think is Mother Mary and Jesus himself. People have even said that they've been healed by these ghosts, but I think they're probably liars. At number 3, we have the Church of Bones. Another church covered in bones. Bricks must have been expensive back then. Well, this one is way crazier than the Bone House. It all started in 1278 when an abbot came to the spot where the church stands today with a handful of dirt. He said the dirt was from the site where Jesus was crucified, and then he dusted the land with it. Then everyone in Europe wanted to be buried there. It was the place to get buried, baby. So there were a ton of bodies there. Then in the 1800s they wanted to build a church there, so they had to dig up all the bodies, and it was one dude's job to stack all the bones. He made 6 pyramids of bones from 70,000 people. The bones were later used to decorate the whole church. There's a chandelier in there that has every bone from the human body. At number 2, we got Old Rock Church in Texas. We made it to America, where this little abandoned church is still a happening place. It was built between 1884 and 1886, but shut down not too long after because another church got built nearby. But that didn't stop this place from being a hotspot, because apparently ghosts still go there, especially on Sundays. This new church may have had a fresh coat of paint, but the Old Rock Church had followers so devoted they still came to church after they died. People have seen all sorts of ghosts and lights coming from this church, but the craziest haunting that happens there is when people hear a full choir singing. Damn, this place is lit! And number 1 on our list is Church of GREYFRAIRS. For our first place, we shoot back over to England. The Church of GREYFRAIRS was once the most haunted place in London, but now only the spire stands. And it's haunted for good reason. It's a burial place of the Queen, known as the She-Wolf of France. She had her husband killed, King Edward II, by having a hot iron rod inserted into his anus so it would burn his insides. It said you can still hear his screams. When she died, she was buried with her husband's heart on on her chest. And on the full moon, her ghost will rise, clenching the beating heart of her dead husband. Yeah, you get killed by a hot poker in the butt and your screams echo out for eternity. That's how you get number 1 on this list. Well everyone, that is our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the little notification bell. Hit up the comments like crazy too if you want a part 3 of this video, because then we'll totally do it. Also, like I said before, if you haven't seen part 1, go check it out. Rebecca did such good work on that video. And follow Most Amazing Top 10 on Instagram and Facebook. It's a great way to get to know myself and the other hosts a little bit better. Until next time, I've been Shade Arena, and I'm probably not going to go to church anymore. Well, I never went to church.